You might think that if you earn 6 or even 7 figures during your working years, retirement would be a breeze. After all, isn't a high income the ultimate safety net? But here's the surprising truth. Many high-income earners face just as many, if not more, retirement challenges than middle America. The cars, the vacations, the private school tuition, they all create a lifestyle that's not easy to walk away from. And even with the big paycheck, if your saving strategy hasn't kept pace with your spending, you could be facing a serious shortfall when the paychecks stop. In fact, the biggest risk for high earners isn't how much they make, it's how much they keep and plan for. In this video, we'll cover the real reasons high-income earners often struggle in retirement, why traditional retirement advice often doesn't apply to you, and most importantly, how you can avoid the hidden traps that sabotage wealthy families every year. If you're aiming for retirement that's not just comfortable, but sustainable, you're going to want to hear this. Hey there, I'm Mark Wisniewski. I'm the president of Southern Incomes. Here on this channel, I break down retirement planning, smart tax strategies, wealth building, and how to avoid the most common mistakes that trip up people, especially as you get closer to retirement. If you're serious about protecting what you've worked so hard for and building a retirement that lasts, make sure to hit the like button so more people like you can find this content. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of my future videos. Now, let's dive into exactly why so many high earners struggle and what you can do differently. Reason number 1, lifestyle creep sneaks up on you. One of the biggest financial risks that high-income earners face isn't bad investments or even market crashes, it's lifestyle creep. Here's how it usually happens. When you start making more money, it's easy and almost natural to start upgrading your lifestyle. You move into a nicer home, you buy a better car, you start taking nicer vacations, and you might send your kids to private schools or help them with college expenses. And you find yourself eating out more, you're buying better clothes, and all of this feels justified because you've earned it. But over time, what happens is your monthly expenses quietly start rising right alongside your income. And even though you're making more than you ever thought possible, you're also spending more than you ever thought possible. And this is what we call lifestyle creep. And it's a silent threat because it's almost invisible while it's happening. The bigger danger, when you retire, you're no longer replacing that high income with a paycheck, but you're still carrying the same high-cost lifestyle. Suddenly, the $15,000 a month that you were comfortably spending during your working years becomes a major drain on your retirement accounts. And if you don't have a withdrawal strategy and a spending adjustment plan in place, you could find yourself burning through your savings at a pace that's impossible to sustain. Remember, retirement isn't about how much you've made, it's about how much of your lifestyle that you can maintain without that paycheck. If you're a high-income earner, the key isn't to live like a miser, it's to plan deliberately for a lifestyle that your assets can actually support for 25 to 30 years or even longer. Reason number 2, overconfidence in investment returns. Many high-income earners have been successful in their careers because they've made smart decisions and taken calculated risks, and they've seen the big rewards. But when it comes to investing for retirement, that confidence can backfire, especially if it's not paired with a realistic strategy. Here's the trap. High earners often assume that strong investment returns that they've seen during accumulation years, especially during those bull markets, will continue during retirement uninterrupted. They plan based on an average return of 7% or 8% and even 10% annually without interruption. But here's the problem. Retirement isn't about average returns, it's about sequence of returns. Let me explain. Let's say you retire at 65 and the market drops 20% in that first year. Even if the average returns over the next 20 years is 7%, that early loss can derail your entire plan because because you're now withdrawing income from a shrinking portfolio. That's called sequence risk, and it's one of the most underestimated threats in retirement. Now, combine that with this reality. High-income earners typically have larger portfolios, which means even small market swings can have huge dollar impacts. And if you're withdrawing $10,000 or $15,000 a month, those losses hit even harder. It gets worse if overconfident investors put too much faith in aggressive portfolios, believing that they'll ride out the volatility. But retirement isn't about riding it out. It's about consistency, control, and preserving capital while drawing income. That's why high earners need to approach retirement investing differently. Not more aggressively, but more strategically. What you need is a decumulation strategy that accounts for market volatility, withdrawal timing, diversification by tax type, and most importantly, your personal income goals. Don't let past returns lull you into a false sense of security, because in retirement, predictability beats potential. Reason number 3, lack of a clear withdrawal plan. One of the biggest reasons high earners struggle in retirement is simple. They focus so much on growing their wealth that they'll eventually have to live off of it, and living off of your savings is a totally different game. During your career, it's all about accumulation. You're adding to your 401k, your investment accounts, your real estate portfolio. But once you retire, you switch into decumulation mode. And the way you withdraw that money matters just as much as how you saved it. Without a clear withdrawal plan, high earners often make these critical mistakes, pulling money randomly from accounts without considering the tax impact, triggering unnecessary taxes by taking large distributions all at once, draining tax-advantaged accounts too early while taxable accounts sit untouched, failing to create a consistent income stream that matches their lifestyle needs. The result, they end up paying way more in taxes than necessary, facing penalties that they didn't expect, and feeling stressed about how long that their money is now actually going to last. Here's what a smart withdrawal plan should do. Prioritize which accounts you pull from and when. Taxable, tax deferred, Roth. Align with Social Security and required minimum distribution strategies. Protect your investments from being liquidated at the wrong time, especially in down markets. Allow for flexibility as your spending needs are going to change over time. Think of it like this. Your withdrawal strategy is your paycheck in retirement. If you don't plan it carefully, you could be leaving tens and even hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table. And for high earners who've built significant assets, that's a costly mistake you don't need to make. Reason number 4, inflation and rising costs. Another major reason even high earners run into problems is underestimating the impact of inflation. When you're still working, inflation doesn't seem like a big deal because your salary typically grows over time to keep pace. But in retirement, most people are living off of a relatively fixed pool of assets, and every year that passes, the real value of those assets shrinks. Let's put some real numbers to it. At just 3% inflation, the cost of living doubles every 24 years. So if you retire at 60, by 84 years old, you could need twice as much money just to maintain that same lifestyle. Healthcare costs alone are rising even faster than general inflation, and they tend to spike in your later years. High earners sometimes assume that because they have a large nest egg that they're immune to inflation. But without a plan to grow their money, even in retirement, inflation can quietly erode their wealth and leave them vulnerable later in life. That's why building a retirement income plan that factors in rising costs is essential. A solid plan should include growth-oriented investments to outpace that inflation even after retirement begins. Adjust your income targets upward over time to reflect those higher living expenses. Protect against unexpected healthcare costs with the right insurance or savings strategy. Prepare for long retirements. Planning for age 90 and even 95 is becoming the new norm. Simply put, retirement isn't about reaching a big number. It's about stretching that number across 30 or more years of life, even as prices rise all around you. Failing to plan for inflation is like setting the sail without checking the weather. It might be smooth for a while, but eventually the storm's going to come. If you're a high earner heading into retirement or even thinking about it, you have a huge opportunity right now to avoid these common pitfalls. The truth is, building wealth is one skill, but protecting it and growing it responsibly and turning it into a lifelong income stream is a completely different skill. And the sooner you get a real plan in place, the more peace of mind you're going to have, no matter how the markets, taxes, or inflation behave in the future. If you want to make sure your retirement plan is strong enough to last decades and avoid costly mistakes, book a time with me using the link in the description. Let's make sure your hard-earned wealth works just as hard for you in retirement as you did in building it.